Dr. Farinelli, and this is for our graduate classes in school administration at Northeastern State University. And this will be one of those general lectures that applies to all my classes, because I get this same question in all my classes, and it is, what do we mean by a graduate level paper? And so I'm going to talk about that with some specific suggestions, and I'm going to give you some ideas of some things you can look up, some research you can do. So generally in most graduate classes, you will have several kinds of papers that you write. For example, one that comes up a lot is what I would consider a descriptive essay, where you are describing something that has happened. It might be a case history about a student, it might be a case history about a teacher, about a program, about a school. It could be a case history about some community project that is going on, service learning that you're doing with your students or with an organization in town. So one type of paper that is often done, I think this will be on the camera fine, so one would be what I would call a descriptive. So the secret here is that you're doing exactly what it says. You're trying to describe a person or a situation and tell accurately what happened or what is happening, or what you think will happen. So generally in a descriptive essay or descriptive paper, you are not really trying to convince anybody of an opinion. You're not arguing a point. However you might. I mean, you might actually have some point in there. But descriptive essays tend to be more just describing something as it is. For those of you with a background in literature or composition and rhetoric, I've heard several terms used out there in the literature. One is that this is technical writing or scientific writing. Have any of you ever heard any other terms from your English classes for papers that simply describe something as it is or as it was? So I'll just leave it at that, and you can go research this, and you might find a different term for this. But this is the term that I was taught and that I will use. Another type of essay or paper that is done a lot in graduate school would be what I would call a problem-solving paper or problem-solving essay. And this is where you actually take a problem, and so you might want to go watch the video on Popeye to get a good example, because one formula that you could follow for a problem-solving essay is, after your introduction, that you then follow a problem-solving strategy or problem-solving steps. And there are several versions of problem-solving steps. Probably the simplest one that we've come up with in my classes over the last 27 years, we call Popeye. So if you want to go watch the Popeye essay, you can find the Popeye essay on the iDrive in the Farinelli folder. And there's also a Popeye worksheet that you could use if you want to follow those steps with a group and hand out the sheets to everybody. And you have my permission to copy those, just as long as you're not selling them. If you're going to sell them, be sure to let me know so I can ask you for my percentage. If you're using them in workshops or use them with groups, that's fine. Just be sure that you footnote it and that you give me credit if you're going to use this specific model. And it's very much like many other models. I think you could probably take this all the way back to the Greeks. I think perhaps maybe Hippocrates or one of the people who, I'm trying to think who was considered the father of the scientific method. If you want to look that up on your computer, you might be able to tell me that one before I get too far on down the road here. But the problem-solving steps is where you do all that you can do to truly describe the problem, not just the symptoms. And so that's where needs assessment, you might want to look up the tools of needs assessment for this first step. And in looking for your options, a lot of times your needs assessment will even give you an idea of options that other people have tried. Do you get anything on your computer for father of scientific method?
Galileo.
Oh, Galileo. Okay, there you go. I went way too far back. I went to Hippocrates. So thank you for looking that up. And so in the options, generally, you know, some of the things you might want to look up for that would be the idea of a force field analysis or a cost-benefit analysis or a task analysis. In a force field analysis, you are looking at all of the options that you can find in the research, and you're thinking about or looking for what other people have said, the pluses and minuses, or the benefits and the deficits of each of those options might be if you try to apply that option in your setting. So that would be one way to think about option analysis, of analyzing all your options. I used to call this alternatives, but Popeye was easier for most people to remember than Popeye. And so the main thing when you're looking for options, or sometimes analyzing and synthesizing different options into your own option, is you're trying to turn a problem into a solution. And that's why we need leaders. Leaders help people to get together in groups, especially in democratic leadership. If you want to look up Lewin's 3 leadership styles, or Owen's 5 leadership styles, if you're following the participatory or participating or democratic model, leadership style, and if you have time to go through that step, to get a group together and to come up with the problem and your goals and all of that, to do the needs assessment, and then to analyze the options that are in the literature. And by literature, I mean that very broadly, not only journal articles and books, but also in interviews or talking to other people or visiting other schools. So you come up with a plan. Generally, the plan will tell you which resources are already provided, which resources you need to go get. And so, you know, there we think of the classic 7 resource variables. How are we doing on